I think that an apology might be in order here. Several months back, I discussed / made fun of Nickelodeon's Portal Chase Saga, a series of animated shorts uploaded to the official Nicktoons YouTube channel that saw Nickelodeon's most iconic / only relevant characters at the time travel the multiverse chasing after something. While the first Portal Chase series was a perfectly serviceable web cartoon for kids, Portal Chase 2 Judgment Day wasn't. This was a hollow product completely devoid of anything resembling creativity or fun. It was a slow, boring, shallow imitation of the Nicktoon crossovers of old that I somehow managed to complain about for 40 plus minutes. For a while there, I thought that Portal Chase Reloaded was the pinnacle of cheap online Nickelodeon slop. However, if you saw my video covering Portal Chase, you'll remember that way into the video's production, I discovered something worse. This is Nickverse Crossover Chronicles, a series of 4 official Nickelodeon animated shorts released every other week from August 8th to September 19th, 2024 that sees various Nickelodeon characters going on zany slice-of-life adventures. And by various, I mean the exact same 6 to 8 characters. And by zany, I mean horrifying beyond all human comprehension. I know that I dunked on Portal Chase, I can't think of any more sequel titles for looking cheap, but dear lord, this series generally feels like it's being held together by glue and duct tape. This, right here, is the true bottom of the barrel when it comes to cheap Nickelodeon web content. Now, unlike Portal Chase, which ended up having a surprising amount of content and lore to discuss, to my knowledge, the entirety of Nickverse consists solely of these 4 shorts. Which begs the question, are 4 cheap Nickelodeon web shorts really worth talking about for a video? I mean, probably not. Honestly, I'm mainly making this because I wanted to put out one more video by the end of the year, and this seemed like an easy enough subject to cover. Although knowing me, this video probably won't be out until January. Plus, I've started working on the Cartoons of 2024 video, and those always take a while to make, so why not have a shorter video in between that time? But enough of my flimsy justification for this video, it's time to put way too much thought into analyzing this garbage made for 3-year-olds. This is where my life is at now! To start off, if you couldn't tell by the premise, alongside the poor attempts at a vaguely anime-esque art style, this is Nickelodeon's very shoddy attempt at replicating Disney Channel's Chibi Tiny Tales, one of several series of animated shorts that play during the commercial breaks on that channel. Now, I have heard some people claim that Portal Chase was meant to capitalize on Chibi Tiny Tales. However, the original Portal Chase predates those shorts by 2 years. Plus, I feel like Portal Chase was going for a very different vibe, being less slice-of-life antics and more Nicktoons Unite light. Nickverse, though? Yeah, it's pretty clear where they drew inspiration from. They're not even trying to hide it. The only difference here is that Nickverse was made on a budget of $5 and a pat on the back. I mean, it's not even like Chibi Tiny Tales was ever anything to write home about. This honestly isn't the type of show that I'd personally seek out for myself, but even for cheap little web shorts, you could tell that there was at least thought put into them. Visuals are at least kind of cute, and they do have their moments every now and then.
I'd give our next guest a pat on the back, but she's recovering from a sword wound. Give it up for Marcy!
I don't know what's funnier, the fact that they got away with that joke, or that this is far more acknowledgement of Marcy's stabbing than we ever got out of Amphibia. Nickverse Crossover Chronicles, on the other hand, generally looks like those nightmarish, zero-effort animations based on licensed characters that plague YouTube kids. Even for a web cartoon, the quality on display here is absolutely unacceptable coming from one of the big 3 kids networks. The haphazard attempts at emulating a chibi-like art style, combined with the awkward, janky animation, gives the series this really uncanny vibe. Seriously, all of these characters look like they're in immense pain at all times, especially CatDog. Dear lord, someone please put this poor creature out of its misery. It definitely doesn't help that there are a myriad of obvious animation errors. Yes, animation errors pop up in even the best of shows, it's just part of the grueling, stressful process of making a cartoon, but some of this stuff is just plain unacceptable. My favorite weird visual thing about Nickverse is how Dog's snout is drawn in a way that makes it look like the top of his mouth is always grinning, so it just looks completely bizarre whenever he frowns. It's like he has 2 mouths. Why is CatDog such a freak. I genuinely have no idea why Nick doesn't just use the art style of OG Portal Chase for these Nicktoons web shorts. That show had a perfectly serviceable, kind of cheap art style, yet for some reason they decided that this Nightmare Fuel was the better look for their crossover shorts. Nickverse also completely misses the entire point of Chibi Tiny Tales. It's meant to both promote their shows and celebrate the network's history. This, as well as Disney Channel's other shorts, utilize countless characters throughout the network's decades-long history, with their more recent programming usually getting top priority, and puts them in all sorts of wacky scenarios where they can bounce off of each other. Nickverse, on the other hand, only focuses on the same small handful of characters throughout all 4 episodes, no doubt for budgetary reasons, limiting the kinds of stories that they can tell. And unsurprisingly, none of these characters are from their new shows like Max and the Midnights, Rock Paper Scissors, or even Fairly Odd Parents: A New Wish, because Nickelodeon has long since given up on trying to promote shows that aren't Spring Boob and The White-Haired Boy. It's mainly just SpongeBob, The Loud House, and a few 90s and 2000s Nicktoons. Not that a large selection of characters would help that much, because Nickverse's plots are far more bland and broad when compared to that of the already pretty basic Chibi Tiny Tales, which at least put their characters in situations that play with their personalities as well as the settings of their shows. The quote-unquote stories are as follows. The Nicktoons go on a race, the Nicktoons have a wrestling match, the Nicktoons go to an amusement park, and the Nicktoons all work at the Krusty Krab. Now these premises at least have the potential to offer some fun character interactions, but it's all undermined by the cheap animation and the complete lack of personality. Well, I say this, but surprisingly enough, Nickverse Crossover Chronicles actually does somewhat of a better job of portraying these characters' personalities than the second Portal Chase did. Basic traits like Nate being a prankster and CatDog often fighting each other are on display and actually influence the characters' actions within the narrative. Now it's not a whole lot, and this only really applies to maybe half the cast, who still only feel slightly less like cardboard cutouts as the other characters, but it's something at least? Now let's take a look at the character lineup. While SpongeBob and Lincoln Loud are pretty much a given for something like this, the rest of the cast is at least a little bit interesting. Now it's not at all shocking that they're including TMNT, but what's kind of surprising is that they went with the more recent Mutant Mayhem iteration of Mikey, instead of the classic 80s versions of the characters that they usually use. Although I really wish they went with the classic version, because my god, they did not do a good job of translating this design into 2D. The only other reason Nicktoons are included here are Dora, who's being depicted using her design in the new Dora the Explorer show, even though Dora is a Nick Jr. show rather than a proper Nicktoon, and Nate Wright from Big Nate, which is really weird because Nickverse premiered more than 4 months after Big Nate was removed from Nickelodeon's current / soon-to-be dead streaming service Paramount Plus, and had all traces of it completely scrubbed from Nick.com. Isn't the whole point of this web series to promote your programming to kids? Promoting Big Nate here is kind of redundant when the only way for kids to watch full episodes of this show is by either buying them digitally or pirating them. And I don't know about kids today, but at that age, I didn't have money, and I sure as hell didn't know how to pirate cartoons. I can only assume that this series was put into production during the period where Nick had even a little bit of interest in Big Nate, although I'll at least give Nickverse props for including a character who isn't a part of a big or nostalgic IP. As for the legacy characters, I'm actually really surprised they didn't include Jimmy Neutron or Danny Phantom here, given how they're amongst the most beloved Nicktoons and have a far greater tendency to pop up in Nick crossovers when compared to the nostalgic characters that they went with. Although their absence does kind of add up, considering that since they last teamed up with the other Nick characters for a big dumb crossover web series, Danny has gone off to have far more worthwhile adventures in the realm of comics, while Jimmy is currently recovering from another manic depressive episode he had over the guilt he still feels over Sheen getting trapped in space because of his rocket. You guys ever think about how the Jimmy Neutron franchise canonically ends with one of Jimmy's closest friends stranded on an alien world? Like, Sheen has not appeared in anything since then. He's still in space and hasn't seen his friends and family in over a decade. It's actually kind of tragic when you think about it. Anyways, the classic Nick characters include Chucky from Rugrats, who has the distinction of being the only character here to not look like a soulless husk, CatDog, who again looks like they want to die, and then there's Zim. What are you doing here, man? Zim is a homicidal killer alien bent on nothing less than complete planetary destruction. Yet here he is, just palling around, being buddies with Lincoln Loud, and I'm just supposed to stand here and pretend there isn't something terribly wrong with this picture? I held this back in the Portal Chase video, but it has to be said now. What the hell is Nickelodeon doing to Zim? Going to amusement parks, helping others, being friendly in any capacity? That's not the murderous Zim I've come to know throughout the maybe 10 episodes of Invader Zim I vaguely remember watching as a kid. Yet time and time again, Nickelodeon keeps playing like he's one of the good guys, and has everyone just suddenly be cool with him as if the heroes of the Nickelodeon multiverse haven't fought Zim multiple times and are fully aware of what this monster is capable of. Need I remind you all of the organ harvesting incident? There was a point where Zim was the Thanos of the Nickelodeon cinematic universe, and now look at him. This is forgiving Orochimaru's level of bullshit. You used to be cool, man. What happened? In all seriousness though, there's an entire generation of kids who probably think that Zim's just paired out from Steven Universe, and I find that genuinely hilarious. Now with all of that out of the way, let's actually examine what exactly happens in Nickverse Crossover Chronicles. Spoilers, not very much, especially since unlike Portal Chase, there isn't anything in the way of an ongoing narrative. But I'm still gonna try my best to make sense of this cheap children's web cartoon, because once again, this is just where my life is at. The first episode, titled SpongeBob Races Everyone in Outer Space, sees SpongeBob, Lincoln, Mikey, Zim, CatDog, and Chucky, well, racing in space. Not sure why they're doing this in space, but whatever. It's actually really impressive how CatDog's able to drive when neither one of them are actually using the pedals. One might think that it's a flawed idea to have CatDog in a racing episode, when the only way they could realistically drive was if one of them was out frame operating the pedals, but they couldn't just leave out the iconic CatDog car. And yeah, nothing really happens here. The Nicktoons just race for a whole 7 minutes. Unfortunately, just like with the second Portal Chase, these episodes drag out way longer than they need to. No briskly paced minute-long shorts here like those other guys, because how else would they have time for such hilarious running gags like something happening to Mikey's pizza whenever he tries to eat it? Would have been a real shame if that knee slapper got cut. I don't know, man. They race, they run into Reptar, who for some reason can't breathe in space while everyone else can. They shoehorn in the bit from the 2001 A Space Odyssey soundtrack. Because space, I guess. A Jurassic Park reference happens, and Chucky wins due to the other racers being momentarily stranded in space before returning to... Wait. 1, 2, 3. Oh my god! The animators forgot about CatDog! They don't come back for the end of the episode! We don't see them again! CatDog is just trapped in space with no way to return. Just like Sheen Estevez. Next, we have SpongeBob wrestles everyone in the ring. Gotta love the amount of thought they put into these episode titles. The plot here is that SpongeBob, Mikey, Zim, CatDog, and Chucky participate in a free-for-all wrestling match to win the championship belt. Although considering that SpongeBob is canonically a Galaxy Buster, I'm not sure why the others are even bothering to try. Lincoln being canonically among the least powerful Nick characters, wisely chose to sit this one out. In the crowd, we can actually see a predictably unattended Tommy Pickles alongside Patrick Star and Mr. Krabs, who actually look normal. I guess it just wasn't in the budget to alter them to fit their god-awful art style. There are also nematodes, who are apparently the only fish that reside in whatever nonsense world this is, as well as a bunch of OCs who don't remotely fit in with the vaguely anime-esque art style, including this one pig with glasses. I hate him. This episode is also every bit as nothing as you'd expect it to be. Lame jokes, awful awkward animation, no surprises here, save for this mysterious figure shrouded in shadows. Let me just put a pin on that one. Anyways, nonsense happens. Zim uses a laser to make SpongeBob big and small. Is this something he does in canon? Who knows and who cares? CatDog gets blown up and comes back with their proportions getting screwed up in different ways. Totally the result of Zim's laser gun and not stressed out animators. CatDog wins by using their iconic CatDog super breath. Wait, what? What do you mean CatDog wins? None of their feats remotely compare to Mikey's, let alone SpongeBob's. However, before they can decide who gets the belt, out from beneath the arena emerges the mystery figure from earlier, who turns out to be... Actually, before I go on, I have a bit of an interesting story about this episode that I'd like to share. When I watched this episode for the first time, I genuinely thought that this mysterious figure was supposed to be Ghost Bear, a recurring antagonist in Rise of the TMNT. Now I know that sounds silly for me to believe that Nick would reference Rise in a cheap 2024 web cartoon, but the silhouettes are exactly the same, and Ghost Bear's whole thing is that he's a luchador. This would fit in perfectly with the episode's plot, and for just a few scant minutes, I didn't feel dead inside watching Nick vs. Crossover Chronicles. Listen, I'm a simple man. When I see Nick reference Peak Fiction, I clap. I was genuinely ready to do the exact same thing for this rushed out garbage web cartoon until it was revealed that the shadowy figure was indeed Sandy Cheeks, using her much larger mid-hibernation design from the SpongeBob episode Survival of the Idiots. What? I don't... Why was she hibernating under the... This makes way less sense than a surprise Ghost Bear appearance. You couldn't at least give me this, Nickelodeon? First you cancel Rise, and now this? Anyways, Sandy shows up and murders CatDog, winning her the match, which is a much more believable outcome, considering that Sandy should roughly compare to SpongeBob via power scaling. And now I miss Rise of the TMNT again. Patrick and Tommy look horrifying in this shot. On to the next episode. SpongeBob and friends fall off a ride. The Nicktoons crew, now joined by Nate Wright and Dora, are going through the carnival. Dora, being an adventurer, goes to some obstacle course to win an idol of some sort. Meanwhile, SpongeBob, CatDog, Mikey, and Nate go to ride a roller coaster, and Lincoln and Zim, oh good lord, why is Zim so small? Even when he's the normal size they use for him here, Zim is still noticeably shorter than Lincoln. I don't like that. Anyways, as I was saying, Lincoln and Zim try to win a laser or whatever. Back with the group at the roller coaster, Nate finds himself blocked from going in by the burly security guard, Sandy, who's working here and is still in hibernation mode because making a new character model costs money that Nick clearly won't give these animators. You know, it's weird how Sandy's in 2 of these episodes, but doesn't look or act at all like she normally does in SpongeBob in either of them. Doubly so, given that Nickverse was released not long after the Sandy Cheeks movie. You'd think that they'd try and tie into it and get kids interested in watching the movie by having Sandy act like Sandy, but once again, who cares? Kids probably forgot all about that train wreck by then. Anyways, Nate's banned for being a public nuisance, but that doesn't stop him from trying to get in via tired gags that probably wouldn't do anything for even the toddlers that this was made for, and there's that pig again! What is his deal? So Nate sneaks onto the roller coaster, Dora scales the course, Zim continues to be a shell of his former self, Lincoln randomly grows larger here, again totally intentional, and all of these plotlines collide when Zim accidentally derails the roller coaster, which doesn't seem to affect it, and also it was apparently unfinished. Hey, but why? And we already saw people getting off, but it's unfinished, but why was anyone even allowed on? Our final episode, titled SpongeBob Trains New Krusty Krab Crew, starting to think that this network might favor SpongeBob a bit here, actually uses a location from one of the shows. Not only that, but it's a whole 2 minutes shorter than the last episode. This is already the best installment of the Nickverse saga yet. SpongeBob decides to hire his friends to help out at the Krusty Krab, including the literal baby, because I guess child labor laws aren't a thing in whatever bizarre world this series takes place in. You know, it's kind of hard to believe that Zim would agree to this considering the whole cis war incident. Things are going well until CatDog does what they do best and be a burden to everyone around them by accidentally knocking SpongeBob out. But it doesn't really amount to anything, and everything just kinda works out in the end. No, really, that's all that happens. Like, the only funny bad bit here is Nate's eyes getting covered by tomato slices, blinding him, yet he never thinks to simply remove them. Beyond that, this episode felt even more on autopilot than the others. It's honestly kind of an anticlimactic note to end this show on. Seriously, what was up with that pig guy? Hey, this is Future Sockman here. So while editing, I actually noticed something. Once again, Cat Dog isn't present at the end of the episode. The animators forgot about them again. Seriously, why is it always Cat Dog? It's bad enough that they're societal outcasts who get the crap beaten out of them on a daily basis, star in a mediocre ass show that wound up getting completely upstaged by SpongeBob, got cut from Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, and have left zero cultural impact beyond a meme associated with that freak who makes pedo art of the Powerpuff Girls, but this web series just does not give a damn about them at all. I'm telling you, man, Cat is one bad day away from becoming the Joker. When will this poor creature's suffering end?
When a cat poops, what does it come out of the dog's mouth? That's some kind of living hell. That's some kind of living hell, Brian.
And that's it for Nickverse. While we don't know for sure as to whether or not there will be more episodes in the future, considering the abysmal reception, even when compared to the second Portal Chase, as well as the current view counts, making the chances of this series ever approaching the viewership of Portal Chase look extremely slim, it's pretty safe to assume that this series is done for. So shock among shocks, the horrifying looking piece of crap Nickelodeon shoveled out isn't very good. These are nothing but cheap, slapped together shorts that solely exist to ape off of the success of Chibi Tiny Tales, while lacking basically everything that show had going for it. The idea that they thought the quality of Nickverse Crossover Chronicles was even remotely passable is genuinely baffling. This is straight up one of the most nothing, substanceless pieces of online kids content that you could ask for. Yet here I am, a man in his late 20s, spending an unnecessary amount of time and effort talking about it. This web series that's adjacent to Cocomelon. Maybe this is why I'm never invited to family gatherings. Anyway, what were your thoughts on Nickverse Crossover Chronicles? Were you even aware of this show's existence before this video? If not, how much do you hate me for introducing this to you? I'm willing to bet it's not nearly as much as I hate myself. Feel free to discuss the horrors you've just witnessed in the comments below if you like. Maybe even consider subscribing if you want to hear more of me rambling on about cartoons or incomprehensible fever dreams. I'll see you all in 2025, when I'll hopefully make videos on things actually worth talking about. Knowing me, probably not. I need to get a better hobby.